very special event for me. When I was a teen, I was listening to an AM radio station called WGN when a film critic recommended a movie called Pump Up the Volume.
Where'd you get that shirt?
I got.
You got connections.
Yeah,
I got you.
yeah.
I got you.
I had specifically made for this event. But yeah, I mean, it was an important movie for me for a lot of reasons. It made me feel less alone, because this movie, for those of you who don't know, it is essentially about an introvert who, instead of like going out to parties and playing sports, preferred to hang out in his parents' basement playing music as a pirate DJ and venting into a microphone. Do you think that might have had some influence on me, just like this gentleman here, who at the time I had been listening to him for a few months, going all the way back to 1990, and he'd been recommending films like War of the Roses, Drugstore Cowboy, Do the Right Thing, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Provocative titles for someone who had just turned 13. But I never missed a movie review segment on the radio, the same way I never missed an episode of Siskel and Ebert on TV. The two most important art forms for me were music and film, and a lot of that comes from, Nick's passion, his dedication, his knowledge. I mean, I started going to the movies every weekend, and the whole world was open up to me, especially when I would see something like Pulp Fiction for the first time. And it's possible too. I'm guessing I might have discovered my favorite director of all time, Paul Thomas Anderson, maybe on my own eventually, but it was both Roger Ebert and Nick Digilio's love of a movie called Magnolia that changed everything for me. I stood up and applauded at the end of that movie.
Come on over. I'm sorry, man.
Oh, that's okay.
There's
There's some seats here. You can sit over. We'll make room. We can also have more chairs too. But yeah, that movie is an acquired taste, of course.
Magnolia.
Yes, Magnolia. And that was also around the time that Nick got his own hosting gig as a radio host, but he has gone on to become an award-winning podcaster. He's been a playwright, and he's now the host of a wonderful podcast, the Nick Digilio Podcast, and a long member of the Chicago Film Critics Association. Now we can add writer and author to that long list of accomplishments for his incredible new book, 40 Years, 40 Films, which is what we're celebrating today, and it is a tremendous achievement, as you would expect. The title says it all, but it's also a memoir. It's a collection of lists, which I happen to love, and a beautiful summation of what makes Nick Digilio a Chicago legend in every single way. But don't take my word for it. Let's hear from someone who starred in two of my dad's favorite films, Groundhog Day and Sneakers, someone Nick has known for quite a while.
Oh, man.
He has something to say.
Stephen Tobolowsky in freezing Los Angeles. But I'm not going to complain, because no matter how cold I am here, I'm not as cold as you are there. Oh, Chicago. Anyway, I want to congratulate you on your magnificent book, 40 Years, 40 Films. I'm a sucker for love stories, and your book is one of the greatest love stories I've ever read. I know it echoes the experiences I had as a child, the great movies and the great movie halls and the way films were presented and how it affected our lives. In fact, it's probably what set me on my path to end up being a part of film history, saying Bing or Passport, whatever. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your book. Thank you for your generosity in letting us into your life and experiencing this love again. Congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Digilio.
Jim, come on, man. Thank you. Wow, he's an amazing guy. That's really sweet, Jim. Thank you so much. What a nice introduction. I'm always shocked when anybody under 80 used to listen to me. And you were 13, which was...
I know, and And
Thanks,
it was
man.
at,
That
it's at
really
a time
sweet.
when my brain was developing too, so I always
God,
just
I'm
think of
sorry.
what would have become if I hadn't discovered Nick? Who knows? But so you could blame him. No, I'm just so honored to be talking with you today, and I also, I have some questions, but we're also going to play some clips from a few of the movies featured in this wonderful book, which, again, like it is a summation of you in so many ways. But how did this project sort of begin for you? Because for the most part, I just know your voice as a broadcaster, as a public speaker, as a podcaster. You definitely have written reviews and plays in the past, but never a full-blown book until now. So what was the impetus? What was the lightning bolt moment that said, I want to write a book?
My story is kind of unique in how I got into the radio business and how I got into the business in general. I think it's unique, it's unusual. And my childhood is unique in that, like, I had no rules growing up about what I could see and what I could watch. There were none. I saw The Exorcist when I was 8. My dad took me to see it when I was 8. So that all rules were gone by that point. So I think that was interesting. But also, I thought, okay, well, this is kind of an interesting story. Making it a nice guide for people to go, oh, I'd like to see this movie, and you can carry it around. There's lists in the back, and you can go, oh, what are we going to stream tonight, honey? And then you can pull out my book and go, oh, well, how about this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. So
I recommend getting a highlighter, and,
Yeah.
and it makes me think of Roger Ebert too in his home movie companion books, and those were definitely a collection of reviews, more or less. And my dad back in 1990, it's a big turning point year for me, bought me the very first, well, not the first edition, but certainly the first time I ever read an entire book of reviews was Roger Ebert's movie Home Companion.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that you obviously include your takes on all your favorite movies here, but they're coming from a more personal place, and it does echo a lot of Roger's writing. Like, he would often insert like what he was thinking and feeling into his reviews.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
I was, again, humbled, and Roger was not only a colleague, but he was a friend. Yeah, I'm thrilled and honored that you would mention Roger Ebert in the same breath as me. Like the fact that that's even thoughtful, is even a thought in anybody's brain is amazing, because he was clearly an inspiration in a lot of ways.
And I know, as you mentioned, an inspirational figure for you is clearly Roy Leonard.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed his voice. You could just be reading a commercial, right? And
You wouldn't even know it.
Yeah, I know.
You guys are you familiar
overwhelmed.
with Roy Leonard? You guys remember Roy Leonard? Roy Leonard was, the book is dedicated to Roy. My book is dedicated to Roy. And because I wouldn't have a career, I wouldn't have been on the radio, I wouldn't have written a book, I wouldn't have been a syndicated, nothing without Roy Leonard. And so Roy was one of these special guys that doesn't exist in the broadcast industry. Just doesn't, because he's competent, and two, he's smart, and he was a really brilliant guy. And my initial connection to Roy was just as a fan. I grew up on Addison, blocks away from Wrigley Field. That's where I grew up. And as a kid, WGN was on my radio in the house all the time. And so, like, I was an only child. I'm an only child, and I grew up like 5 blocks away from Wrigley Field, and so I was listening to WGN on a regular basis, and so Roy was part of that. And so when Roy would come on, I would listen to him. But the thing about Roy Leonard was that he was accessible. Gene and Roger weren't. Like, I couldn't call up Roger and ask him what he thought of this movie, but I could call Roy. And I would call him as like a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid and go, why didn't you like Caddyshack? And then he'd go, well, because it wasn't good, or something like that. And then Roy, I was a regular caller. I was like Nick from Lakeview, and that's how they'd identify me. And I was a regular caller, and then Roy saw something in me. Like, I had this encyclopedic knowledge of film, and so Roy saw something in me, and I became kind of a regular caller of the show, and he put me on a mailing list to go to screenings that he and WGN would sponsor. And then, we had that kind of relationship, and then the producer of his radio show was leaving, and he said, why don't you come in and interview for the job? And I was, what? And I just dropped out of Columbia. I was working at the Jewels. I was working at the Jewels. And I was just some smartass who was working at the Jewels who really knew a lot about movies. And so, but I didn't know anything about radio, and I didn't get the job, and deservedly so. The woman who got it, Nina Newhouser, a spectacular producer. She was great. She got the job. But then Roy called me and he's like, you didn't get this job. That's fine. But listen, you like to see crappy movies. I'm done with that. Because at this point, Roy was in his 50s, I think, when I got this call. And he's like, I'm done with that. You like the horror movies. You like those stupid kung fu movies. Why don't you see that crap? You can review it on my show. And that's how it started. And I became a film critic on Roy Leonard's show in March of 1985. And with that, I was on mailing lists. I got to know all the publicists. I started going to junkets. I became a professional film critic, and I started to do reviews on other people's shows on WGN. And then I started to write, and I started to write for New City and The Reader and all these other places. And then eventually I got a radio show on WGN in the overnight year, and then I did that. And I was with WGN for 35 years. I hosted my own show for over 20 years, mostly overnights. And that's all because of Roy Leonard. It's all because he called me and said, hey, you didn't get the gig, why don't you review crappy movies on my show? And the first movie I ever reviewed on Roy Leonard's show as a professional critic was Friday the 13th, Part 5. Not in the book, by the way.
Not one of
my favorite films in the past 40 years.
1985, right.
But that's how it all started, and that's why the book is dedicated to Roy, and that's why I was lucky enough to get to know him and call him a friend and a mentor, and the guy who inspired me more than anybody else in the world. And he was an incredibly, just selfless guy, and was like so generous and so amazing. And again, one of the greatest broadcasters of all time. You mentioned commercials. Watching Roy run a radio show from the mic and working with the producer and working with the engineer, and you like you said, you'd be listening to Roy Leonard, and then you're like 30 seconds into a commercial, and you finally go, I think he's doing a commercial right now, because he was that smooth. Yeah. Like you didn't know. It was conversational. It was lovely. He was one of the greatest people that I've ever known in my life, and I owe everything in my professional career to Roy Leonard, and that's why the book's dedicated to him.
And your connection and friendship with Roy was always like apparent, even when you disagreed. It's similar, to what Siskel and Ebert had. And he obviously respected you even when you would champion a movie like David Cronenberg's Crash.
Which I am screening at the Lake Theater February 11th.
Yes, and he would go, oh, I can't believe you like that movie, or something like Lost Highway. I just remember hearing those reviews in particular and kind of going, I have a feeling I'm going to side with Nick on these movies, because they're weird, and I like weird.
You mentioned Lost Highway. David Lynch, the second film that's featured in the book, 1986, because it starts at 86. My favorite film in 1986 is David Lynch's Blue Velvet, which, by the way, I took her to see it on our second date. Our first date, by the way, was The Fly. David Cronenberg's The Fly. I really know women. Really. That's why it took us 37 years to reunite. We dated in the 80s for a little while, and then we got back together about 3 years ago and started dating again. But anyway, I took her to see Blue Velvet. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was the best movie ever. I remember sitting in the screening room on Lake Street. There's this guy. I was just there yesterday, by the way. 16th floor of a business building on Lake and Wabash. There is a screening room that's been there. It used to be the Plitt screening room, and then it was the SNS screening room, and then it was all this other. Now it's just a screening room, and so it's like a 50-seat little screening room up in this business building. And we were in this theater, and we were in the screening room, and Roy was sitting next to me. And after Blue Velvet, I had just had this silly smile on my face, and I was like, man, do you guys like David Lynch? Anybody? Yeah. Roy hated it. Let me just say that. So the first time that we ever had like a huge disagreement on the air was Blue Velvet. And I had only been a part of Roy's show at that point about a year, maybe a little longer than a year. And so, and there's still the WGN audience, when someone new comes in, there was a period of time when if anybody under 50 came on the WGN radio, they'd be like, who are these? Who is this idiot? Why is he on the air? And so people got very possessive. And so here I am, this young punk who loves horror movies, and I'm arguing with Roy Leonard, a stalwart on WGN, about a movie where a guy discovers a severed ear and all kinds of horrible things happen, and Roy hated it. I remember when the movie ended, he said, the movie screen was not made for crap like that, is what he said. But he used the S word.
Roger Ebert hated it.
I know. A lot of people hated it. But anyway, that was the first time when the audiences were like, who is this punk? I don't think I like him. And it was the first time we ever really argued. But there were times when Roy and I would disagree. But Roy was a professional, you know what I mean? We didn't like movies. That was, beside the point. we were really good friends and everything.
Yeah,
like that.
he wouldn't go, "You're dumb for liking that."
Yeah, you're an idiot. Get out of my studio. He could have done that.
Right.
He should have done that, I think, a few times. But anyway.
Oh, you always had interesting callers too. 1997 was another big year for me because that was the first year I called in to Roy's show. And
Really, 97?
yeah, and that was when I said, I have my own top 10 list. Can I read it on the air? And he was like, of course, this sounds great. We've never done this before with a listener.
That's right.
And yeah, and he was so cool and so kind.
What was on your list in 97?
Well, definitely Jackie Brown, Lost Highway, Boogie Nights, of course. Contact, because we love Zemeckis.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
But yeah, no, I mean, I felt really connected to the both of you in that moment, just because I'd seen all the same movies and pretty much had, very similar taste, and, it just felt like how you must have felt calling into Roy's show.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad
that was a great year.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to do that to you. And I remember you calling in, and you're just really. You're a special dude, Jim. And no, I'm serious, you are. And I appreciate everything all the kind things that you've said about me over the years. You've been one of my biggest supporters, and you have no idea how much that means to me, truly. And I love doing what I do, the podcast, stay connected with the audiences and stuff like that, because of the kind of relationship that you and I have.
Exactly,
and
that's blossomed into us connecting with other great film critics in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 97, by the way, my number one movie was 187.
A movie that nobody has seen.
Everybody. And people
I saw it because of you.
But yeah, I'm sure you loved it.
Yeah, I did.
No, you did.
I did actually.
Don't know what that movie is, but it's the best.
We did a podcast episode on Kevin Reynolds recently.
Kevin Reynolds is the director of that movie, and he's an underrated director who unfortunately is always forever going to be tied with Kevin Costner, and that's a bad thing.
Yeah, and speaking of film critic colleagues, I appeared with you on WGN Live in studio with Eric Childress and Colin Suter to talk about the film, the year in film for 2002. Okay. And we were sort of all still in shock, like many of us, with what happened with 9/11. Yeah. And the three of us had this intense emotional response to 25th Hour. Right. And I think you were going through a difficult time to where that film didn't hit you the same way at that moment. And I think, talk a little bit about that, because rewatching a movie often, later down the road, it has a different experience.
It's the only movie in the book that wasn't my original favorite movie of the year. Right. All of the other ones were my favorite movie of that year. When I first saw 25th Hour, I don't know. I was drinking heavily at that time, and I wasn't drunk when I saw it, but I was like I was hungover and I was in a crappy mood and I was having a bad time. And I saw it, and I wasn't really prepared for it, and I kind of dismissed it. Yeah. And then my favorite movie of that year, at the end of that year, the list was Punch Drunk Love, which is Paul Thomas Anderson, who, by the way, will be nominated for many Academy Awards tomorrow morning at 7:30. About time, and he's going to win some. But anyway, so that was Punch Drunk Love was my favorite movie of the year, and then a few months go by, and because it's Spike Lee, and I love Spike Lee, and so I rewatched 25th Hour, and with like a clearer head and a different frame of mind, and it knocked me on my ass, and I was like, wow, did I miss the boat on this? And that happens sometimes. Sometimes you miss the boat on movies, like. I think everybody in this room has seen a movie and either disliked it at one point and then maybe found something to like about it. It happens more often the opposite way. Like when you're young, you like a movie and then you go back and you go, God, that sucked. Was I an idiot when I was a kid? I have terms for that. Yep. I have a term for that. When you do a 180 on a movie, like if you like, for instance, I call it, if you liked a movie when you were younger and then you watch it again and you hate it, I call that nighthawking. After the Sylvester Stallone movie Nighthawks, because I was 16 when I saw Nighthawks, and I thought it was the greatest movie ever made. And then I watched it like in my late 20s and early 30s, and I went, God, this sucks. So I call that Nighthawking. The other direction, where you do a 180, where you dislike the movie when you first saw it, and then you liked it, I call that Ramboing. Because when I saw Rambo in 1985, I hated it. Now I think it's like the greatest movie ever made, and I love Rambo. So whenever I do a 180 on a movie that way, so I Ramboed 25th Hour. I didn't dislike 25th Hour. Hour.
You're talking about Rambo First Blood Part 2, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just making
Rambo. Because yeah.
Some people think that, the
No,
original-
First Blood is a legitimately good movie.
Yeah.
First Blood, actually, I think is the best Sylvester Stallone, legitimately great film. But anyway, I digress. Shocking. But anyway, so I Rambo'd 25th Hour, and also another movie that I just popped into my brain that I really hated the first time I saw it, but now I love is, have you guys seen Southland Tales?
Oh, yes.
You gotta go Southland Tales?
Yeah.
Richard Kelly movie? Amazing. The first time I saw it, again, massively hungover and in a crappy mood, and I saw it at the Piper's Alley. You guys remember the Piper's Alley theaters? The worst theater, they were the worst theaters ever. Like the projection was always bad. There was nobody there. Like you could walk in and there was nobody at the box office. There's nobody. Like, dude,
It's attached to Second City, right?
Well, yeah, it's right next to Second City. And I walked in there, and by the end of the life of that theater, I felt like, well, do I have to go up to the booth and turn the movie on? What the hell is this place? So I saw it there. The projection was bad. The sound was bad. I was hungover, and I love Donnie Darko. And Southland Tales is really weird. It's much weirder than Donnie Darko. And I just wasn't in the right frame of mind. And then literally 6 months later, I'm watching it at like 2 o'clock in the morning on cable. I'm like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. So I did a 180 on Southland Tales. But it happens, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that too. I think that's what I've always appreciated. You're vulnerable, and that's not something we always get from film critics.
Yeah.
Like you talk about, like they're not as open with their own lives.
Well, that's the other thing. When I started hosting my own radio show, I share a lot.
Yeah.
I do. On my podcast, I share a lot. You know, and sometimes I'm like, the people who are in my life, I'm always, is that okay I said this, and is it okay if I talk about that? Because I have a tendency to just, whatever's going on in my life, I share it.
Yeah.
And I because of like listening to WGN when I was a kid, it felt like these guys on the radio were family. And my show happened to be on at a very, very intimate time. I was on overnights. And when you're on overnights, and I've talked to a few people who came up and bought a book, and thank you very much. I appreciate that. Who used to listen to me when they were working second shift, they were getting off their shift, or they would listen when they were on third shift. People were up at night. It's a very, very intimate time. And you could call in and talk to the listeners. And I became friends with a lot of listeners, you know, on the airwaves. Like people would call in and I would talk to them, and they were regular callers. There were people who were ill, who were sick, who were up in the middle of the night. People had to take care of their kids. They got a baby, or you're taking care of an elderly person who's up in the middle of the night, or you're working third shift, you're a security guard or whatever. And it's a very, very intimate time. So I would share with my listeners. I got to the point where I was like, look, you guys are listening. I appreciate you guys being here, so I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm going to tell you exactly what's happening in my life, and I'm going to share it. And I was offered during the 20 years that I had hosted shows on WGN, I was offered a different day part. I was offered middays. I was offered the afternoon drive. I turned it down. I turned them down because the overnight was just something that was special to me. So if people would share their lives with me, I would do that. I would reciprocate and share with them. Sometimes to a detriment. Like I would share a lot, and there are people that I know, over the years who'd be like, "Why don't you shut up?" And like, sometimes I don't know. But anyway, no, that's what I do. I talk too much.
That's not a bad thing.
I don't think so, but I don't know. But either way,
everybody's glued to technology and their phones nowadays, so it's refreshing to just communicate and connect in the way that we have, but also with movies.
It's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
Is connecting.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do. That's why it was really hard for me to adjust to the world of podcasts, because there's no immediate connection. Like
right.
I do the same it's the same style. Mm-hmm. My Nick D podcast, not my SNL podcast, but the Nick D podcast is very similar to what I used to do on the radio. But I miss the connection with the audience. I miss it. I loved it. It was my favorite part of doing a radio show, was connecting with the listeners and talking to them and getting to know them. And that's why I love events like this. That's why I like sitting at that table and signing books for you guys is a joy for me. And I don't know. I like that kind of stuff because I'm a wuss.
No, I am too. So that's, again, something we have in common.
Right.
But we also have a love of movies, obviously, and I wanted to play some clips.
Okay.
5 movies, 5
from
clips. From your book. Particular movies that have resonated with me that I would say are probably at the top of my list for that particular year that they came out.
Okay.
And we'll just play a clip from a movie, and then you can just share your thoughts about why you love it as much as you do.
Okay.
Simple enough.
No, it's not. Tobolowsky's not going to pop
No,
up.
no, no.
Okay.
Nick Digilio's 40 years, 40 films takes you through 4 decades of movie-going, movie reviewing, and movie loving, one film at a time.
I think Albert Brooks is a comedic genius. I think he is currently the funniest human on the planet. He's only written and directed and starred in 7 films of his own. And 5 of them are masterpieces and 2 of them are really good. He's never made a bad movie. I think he's brilliant. I think he's so funny. I think that as a filmmaker, he's astonishingly smart craftsman. Like, the framing of his of that scene alone is just like really beautiful, and he's just, as a technical side, he's an amazing filmmaker. But on top of that, he's just hilarious. Lost in America, to me, is the best satire of the 80s, and it was shot in 1984. We were only 4 years into the decade, and he nailed the 80s. He nailed yuppieism, he nailed consumerism and greed better than anybody did ever. And the movie came out in the early part of 1985. It's also just non-stop funny. Like, it's 92 minutes and there's it's funny the entire time. There are classic comedic sequences in the movie. The scene where the character that Albert Brooks plays is an advertising exec, and he tries to negotiate getting his money back from a casino. With a scene with Gary Marshall, where Gary Marshall is the manager of this casino, and he's trying to get the money back that they lost in the casino. He and Gary Marshall in that scene, absolutely brilliant. Some of it improvised, absolutely brilliant. And just like, there's just something about Albert Brooks, his tone, his style. I love him as an actor. Like, in broadcast news, he's brilliant in broadcast news. He's brilliant in everything he does. He was just in the extraordinarily overlooked Ella McKay, which is James L. Brooks' last movie that 4 people saw. But he's brilliant in that. I'm a huge fan. I've been a fan of his since Saturday Night Live. He did short films. The first season of Saturday Night Live, he wrote, directed, and appeared in a series of short films just during the first season of SNL. That's where I first noticed him. And I noticed him as a stand-up before that, like on Merv Griffin and stuff like that. But the first time I became a fan of his was that. And then when I saw Real Life, I was in high school when I saw Real Life, and I was like, this guy is a genius. By the time he made Lost in America, it was his 3rd film. He did Real Life, which is a masterpiece, Modern Romance, which is one of the best movies ever made about relationships, ever. And then by Lost in America, he had established himself as one of the great comedic filmmakers of all time. And Lost in America it's a perfect movie. There's nothing wrong with it.
My dad and I rented Defending Your Life from a video store.
I'll be showing that in August by the way, at the Lake.
And that was one of those bonding experiences between us.
Yeah.
It really was. Like, we just both loved it equally. We talked about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's when I went back and discovered Lost in America and Albert Brooks.
So you started with Defending Your Life and then went back?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
back.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a neat way of doing it. Defending Your Life is an incredible movie. And I know that this is an unpopular opinion, but I think it's Meryl Streep's best performance of all time.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Like, it's
so,
a great
she's so
performance.
charming.
It's very natural. It's very funny. It's not very affected. There's no accent.
Right.
She didn't get nominated for an Academy Award for it, stunningly. But I think it's her. I just love that. I love everything about Albert Brooks. He's
What 2 Brooks films are not masterpieces in your?
The Muse. Do you know The Muse? That's probably why you don't. And Mother.
It's like his Hollywood satire.
And I like Mother, but I like The Muse. I think they're both really good. But the other 5 are like. And even looking for Comedy in the Muslim World, I know a lot of people didn't see that movie and don't know it. I think it's brilliant. But The Muse, and I still like it, and Mother, and I still like that. Those are the only ones that are.
Oh, Mother's is a delight because of Debbie Reynolds, for sure.
Yeah, Debbie Reynolds is fantastic, and there's great stuff in Mother. There's fantastic stuff in that.
And now for something completely different.
Monty Python?
No, we could, but let's. We've got a couple of very different films that are darker, we'll say, but one in particular, this next one from 1993, I will go on record as saying it is the single best film I've ever seen about post-traumatic stress disorder, and I relate to the character of Jeff Bridges in this film so much.
My favorite actor, by the way. Jeff Bridges is my favorite actor.
it is possibly my favorite acting performance. So we got a scene here from Peter Weir's amazing film, Fearless. How he didn't win every award imaginable for that performance.
Well, he wasn't even nominated
Yeah.
for that. How many people have seen Fearless?
Woo!
There should be more hands up. It is an astonishing movie. It is overwhelmingly beautiful and powerful.
Life affirming.
And it's a journey that you take with this character that Jeff Bridges plays. In it, he plays a guy who survives a plane crash and can't connect with his wife or his family. Can only connect with the people who were on the plane with him, particularly Rosie Perez, who was extraordinary in the movie. It is overwhelming. The first time I saw Fearless, and actually every time I watch Fearless, and I've seen Fearless many times, the last 5 minutes of the movie destroy me. Like I can't function at the end. Like I am bawling at the end of the movie, like hyperventilating. It's unbelievable, and the effect that movie had on me. And again, I saw it in that same room where I saw Blue Velvet, sitting next to Roy Leonard. We were watching that movie, and it was a decidedly different response from the two of us after that movie because Roy was overwhelmed by it too. And I couldn't, like, I literally could not. I was just like, I was like sobbing. Beautiful. The last scene in that movie is just this insanely beautiful moment, and everything comes together. It is a movie about post-traumatic stress disorder. There's no question about that. It's about dealing with letting go of your life and of your commitments, and then getting it back. And anchored by, an unbelievable performance by Jeff Bridges. Like it's just. That's one of the best performances I've ever seen. And he's my favorite actor. Jeff Bridges is my favorite actor. I love him. And I think that's the best performance he's ever given. But it's an overwhelmingly powerful film.
I could not play the final scene.
No.
We would all be like...
We'd have to go, okay, that's it, everybody.
Yeah.
So, but it's a really great film. And it's I write about it, in much more detail in the book, in the 1993 chapter, so...
And speaking of tears,
Yeah.
certainly this next film I just mentioned during the introduction, and it's from 1999. It happens to be your favorite film of all time.
This is my favorite movie
and
of
it's
all
very
time.
hard to clip what am I going to take from this 3-hour plus movie,
Right.
and sort of summarize.
I'm curious to see what you chose.
Well, it is a montage, but it's a very special, very beautiful one that even out of context, I think will still work its magic because it is Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia. All right.
Jesus.
And it's that score, that music from John Bryan is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
It inspired me to compose music myself.
Yeah.
So that's also, this movie means the world to me too, in so many ways. But talk about why it's your favorite movie and what it means to you.
Yeah, man. Every time I watch that, I just get a little choked up. I just think it's a beautiful movie. I love everything about that movie. I love how long it is. I love how big it is. I love how unapologetically over the top it is. It is a movie about chance and about life. The intercrossing of stories is just incredibly well handled. There are sequences in this movie that I refer to as like suites that take place where they're all connected by this incredible score that you mentioned by John Bryan, and great songs by Amy Mann also. But this is a movie that is very deeply humanist. The characters in it are flawed. There are relationship issues that are handled throughout the movie. There's a lot of father-son stuff. This is the common thing in Paul Thomas Anderson's movies, and I just think that the acting is extraordinary, and everything about this movie, the way it's weaved together, is just brilliant. The core of the movie, everybody is flawed and has all these horrible things that happen to them, and it's about getting through that. It's about getting through the shit in your life and making it outside at the end. The main, to me, like there's so many different characters. The main character in this movie is Claudia, and she's played by the amazing Melora Walters. And she is just like the saddest, most tragic character in the entire movie. And you go through, there's a lot of sadness in this movie, as you saw. A lot of heavy stuff, a lot of dark themes, and a lot of craziness. At one point, there's frogs that fall from the sky. There's a storm of frogs that fall from the sky. There's no explanation for it within the movie, but I buy it. You know, within the movie, within that, I was like, yeah, I can see that happening.
It's just something that happens.
It is, exactly. It's just something that happens, is the way they explain it. And clearly, Paul Thomas Anderson's got a lot of influences in this movie, Robert Altman being the biggest one. You know, whereas there's like in Shortcuts, an earthquake ties everybody together. In here, it's frogs falling from the sky. And it doesn't bother me. At one point in the movie, it becomes a musical. There's a scene in the movie where all of the characters start singing Wise Up, the Amy Mann song, together. It becomes like a musical number. And if you're not on board for that, by the time the frogs fall out of the sky, you're going to be gone. So, but it all worked for me. But the character that Melora Walters plays, Claudia, is this tragic, so beautifully played by her, and she represents everything that's damaged about a human being in the movie. And the final shot of this movie, the final shot of this movie is her looking directly into the camera. Sorry, I get choked up, honestly. Her looking directly into the camera and finally smiling. And this character that you followed through this entire movie and all this tragic stuff that's happened to all these characters, to end the movie with Save Me by Amy Mann and this beautiful, tragic character looking directly into the lens, looking directly at you, and finally smiling, and that's the blackout.
Yeah.
Perfection.
That's how I feel.
I just think it's an extraordinary movie. I think people think it's too long, it's too big, it's too crazy. It's a very divisive movie, and I totally understand why people don't like it. I absolutely understand that. But it's my favorite movie of all time. Of all time.
I saw it in Northwest Indiana, and the crowd there didn't like it.
Shocking.
And I stood up and applauded like a complete nerd because I loved it so much. And the people in front of me were like, "Oh yeah, we're glad it's over too." And I'm like, "No, I'm applauding because it's a masterpiece. You don't get it.
We can leave. Again, wow, this is weird. I saw that at the Lake Street. It's in the same place I saw Blue Velvet, in the same place I saw, I just sat in the theater afterwards, in the screening room afterwards. I don't know how many times I saw it. It opened in Chicago at the beginning of 2000. Because it opened in New York and LA for Oscar consideration in 1999. Beginning of 2000, I probably went to the theater to see it, 15 times at least. And that's another thing about me. I will see if I like a movie.
How many times have you seen Phantasm?
I don't even know. It's in the triple. I saw it over 100 times in the theater in 1979. Over 100 times. So when I like a movie, I will watch it over and over and over and over and over again. I really will. I just think it's an astonishing movie. And this guy, and Paul Thomas Anderson, who's all of his movies, that every one of his movies is mentioned in the book.
Right.
They're not necessarily number one, but they're all mentioned. And this year, I'm telling you right now, if he does not win Best Director, if One Battle After Another doesn't win Best Picture, if he doesn't win Adapted Screenplay, I am gonna just flip tables, and I'm gonna lose my
On Oscar night, you'll hear me and Nick screaming with joy.
Absolutely. Tomorrow morning at 7:30, his name will be mentioned multiple times.
Yes.
And if it's not, then I don't know what the hell this guy has to do to win an Oscar. So, like the year that I thought the year that for sure he was gonna get it was when There Will Be Blood came out, and then that stupid Coen Brothers movie came out. I hate No Country for Old Men.
You're not always right.
No, I know, but I don't like that movie, and I especially don't like it because it won over There Will Be Blood. So.
I can understand that, but No Country is still great.
Okay.
But anyway, there's a movie here that you got teary-eyed, and it's possible that I will as well, with a particular line from a movie called The Royal Tenenbaums.
Yes.
And 2001. Uh-oh. Was that bad?
Okay. All right.
But no, this is a very special movie to me as well, for a lot of reasons. I first saw this movie at a screening, and you were there.
That's the first time I saw it as well. 600 North Michigan.
Yeah.
I believe,
Yeah.
Theater.
And it was 3 months after my dad passed from kidney cancer, and when, he said that line, I had a rough year, Dad, I was gone. And I remember taking my mom to see this movie and holding her hand, because she knew why, obviously, because of this movie. And then, of course, the very ending of this movie, forget it, because the Gene Hackman character passes away, and it was just like, whew. But it's an emotional film, and it's surprising, especially when you think of where Wes Anderson has gone. I still back even his recent films. I know you're not as high up, and I get it, but I'm still a fan, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that you told me early on about Rushmore, and of course I knew I was going to love this one, and I still do. But it's still your favorite film of that year, right?
It's my favorite film of 2001, and it's my favorite Wes Anderson movie. He's been, in my opinion, he's been trying to repeat that for 20 years now, with the really twee sort of like.
He needs to move on.
He needs to move on. I would agree with that. But at that point, this was just like, it was wholly original. It was different than Rushmore. It was different than Bottle Rocket. Mm-hmm. He established his style. This was the movie that established his style. Now he's been repetitive for a long time. Sometimes it works. Moonrise Kingdom is a fantastic movie. I love Moonrise Kingdom, and I liked Grand Budapest Hotel is great finds. It's hilarious. But this movie, it was new. That style was new. What he was doing, was different. The use of the music and the British B-sides and all the other stuff that he now does regularly. It was fresh, it was new, and also like the acting is amazing in it. Gene Hackman is incredible in this movie. Everybody is, and it's beautiful, and the characters are original, and the way it's told. Alec Baldwin, doing the narration is amazing. Yeah. This was a breath of fresh air. I'd never really seen anything like it, and it was the progression that Wes Anderson made as a filmmaker. Like his movies kept getting better. Like Bottle Rocket was terrific, Rushmore's fantastic, and then when this thing came out, I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. And he continued to make really cool, interesting movies, and then he kind of just is now, and it happens, he's in a rut, but there's no denying that movie. Like, it works stylistically, it works as a great showcase for actors and actresses, it's incredibly original, and it's very emotional. It's a beautiful movie.
Rushmore and Royal Tenenbaums, two of the best soundtracks.
Absolutely,
in terms of needle drops.
I still, I've not liked a Wes Anderson movie in a very, very long time, but I still back this one 100%.
And last but not least, a far more recent film that I also really strongly respond to, and it contains another great male performance by an actor named Michael Shannon from Chicago.
Oh, wow, okay.
We love and adore here. He's just doing everything now. He's like a Renaissance man. He's like
singer for an REM cover band now.
Yeah, he's doing it all. And involved with so many great projects. But there's just something about Take Shelter that really blows my mind. And so we're going to watch one of my favorite pieces of acting of all time. And then we'll open it up to questions for all of you.
Cool. Michael Shannon is incredible in this movie. He's a great actor. He's from Chicago. I've known him. I knew him a long time back when I was doing storefront theater.
Sorry.
Back when I was doing.
He's coming.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Came back on it there. Okay, there we go.
I knew Michael Shannon when he was living in his car. I'm not kidding. He was living in his car on Sheridan, outside of I'm blanking on the theater company that Rich Katowski used to run up on Broadway and Sheridan. Mary Archie, thank you, my friend. Yeah, Mary Archie Theater, and so he was living like in his car, and I knew him back then. He was an incredible actor, and then he's one of the founding members of Red Orchid, and did amazing work here. And one of the great things about Michael Shannon is that he's still connected to this town. This is a guy who has started some of the biggest movies ever made, has been nominated for Academy Awards, and he still comes back here and does theater for 50 people in a small space. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of guy he is. Yeah. He's an incredible actor. He's great. This, I think, is his best performance. And that was also the year that Jessica Chastain burst onto the scene, because in 2011 she was in 4 movies.
Oh, that's right.
And like, I remember she was on a TV show, and I want to say it was like Letterman or something, and she's like, "Look, I'm sorry that I'm in so many movies. It wasn't planned this way. I know it's too much, and I know you're sick of me already." But like one of them was a Tree of Life, which is a Terrence Malick movie, and Terrence Malick takes however long he wants to make a movie. And so that didn't come out. And they all came out, like maybe she was in The Help that year, so she was in like 4 movies in a row, this being one of them, and she was incredible in this movie. Yeah. The ending is really ambiguous to this movie. It is about mental health, and it is about having a breakdown. But then there's that shared moment at the end that really is like, what's happening here? Is she acknowledging it? Is she seeing what he's seeing? It's very ambiguous, and I like that about the movie. It's a dark movie, but it's really, really great. And Jeff Nichols is one of these guys who he makes great independent, low budget movies that are really, really deep with ideas, but also anchored by really very realistic and incredible acting performances. Everybody in this movie, in Take Shelter, is great. I think it's his best movie, and he's made a lot of great movies. If you've never seen Shotgun Stories, it's an incredible movie. He made Mud with Matthew McConaughey.
Midnight Special.
Midnight Special is really great. He's a terrific director, Jeff Nichols. His last movie was The Bike Riders, which is a really great movie with Austin Butler and Tom Hardy. Really terrific movie. So
it's a special movie.
Yeah, it is. Take Shelter is a great film, and it kind of was under the radar. So no pun intended, but it was kind of like under the radar when it came out, and more people need to see it. And it is Michael Shannon's best performance. So if you've never seen it, it's astonishing. It's a great piece of work.
Well, thank you for recommending all those movies these years.
Thanks for sharing. Jim, these were your favorite. These were Jim's favorite movies. And they just so happen to be my favorite movies of each year. And you're a passionate guy, Jim. That's one of the things that I love so much about you. And ever since we've started talking, that you connect emotionally to these movies, and sharing all that stuff with these guys tonight, I think is really special for you. So I give it up for Jim, man.
I haven't written a book yet, but I will.
Jim shared a lot tonight, and like you and I have that in common, where we kind of react emotionally to movies, sometimes in an overwhelming fashion.
But I do want to open it up to the audience. There is a microphone here. If you feel like standing up and asking Nick a question, please do. Because he's an open book, no pun intended.
An open book. Yeah, exactly. If you want to come up and ask a question, I would love to. The tripod out the way.
This out of the way.
All right. Hi.
Hi. So you mentioned Nighthawks, movies that you liked when you were younger, that you revisited when you were older, and you realized they were terrible.
Yeah.
What was the most surprising Nighthawk for you?
Of movies that I liked when I was younger, but then I hated.
Yeah.
Man, that's a good question. Because the one I always go to.
In the book too.
I'm sorry.
Any of those come to mind from the book?
That I used to like, but now I hate. No, not really, because they're not in. Because the book has movies that I like. There are some examples of Ramboing in the book, but not so much. Now that's a good question. Wow, what movies did I dislike when I was young? Because there's a lot of movies when you're a kid, like that you watch. Like, okay, I can tell you one that I don't like that everybody loves that I liked when I was a little kid, but now I don't like. I don't like the Willy Wonka, the Chocolate Factory, the Gene Wilder version. Loved it when I was a little kid. As I got older, I'm like, this movie sucks. And my favorite version of that movie is, well, obvious. I mean, I think it's the Tim Burton one with Johnny Depp. I really love, and then I love the one with my boyfriend Timothée Chalamet from last year, which I thought was great. But that's the first one that popped into my brain because I really liked it as a kid. And then, a lot of movies though, when you watch as a kid. Do you have one?
I tried to watch Flight of the Navigator again a couple years ago.
Wow. Okay, that's specific. Yeah.
It's not as funny as I remember.
Right. That's another thing. Like I remember. I'll tell you what. I don't dislike it, but I remember laughing my ass off at Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. The first time I saw it, like falling on the floor laughing. And then I watched it a few years ago, and it's kind of funny. But I remember like, this is the funniest movie I've ever seen. Because I remember seeing that at Bruinview while I was drinking, so maybe that had something to do with it. I was drunk, maybe. But it was a double feature with Jackass, the first Jackass movie, which, by the way, genius. And there's another Jackass movie coming out in June. It'll be the greatest. Screw Citizen Kane.
Really?
Jackass
There's
5.
another one?
Yeah, hell yeah. Jackass 5 is coming out. And I feel no guilt for that. I love the Jackass movies. I love the TV show. And they showed it as a double feature, Jackass and Jay and Silent Bob. And Jay and Silent Bob was second, so at that point I had a few pictures in me. And I had just watched Jackass, which is one of the funniest movies, legitimately one of the funniest movies ever made. And then, like, when Jay and Silent Bob came on, I was like, that's fantastic! And then, like, about 3 years later, I'm watching, I'm like, it's not that funny. So, yeah.
No, but Jackass has one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It just involves jousting into a convenience store.
I can't even...
It doesn't even make sense. Like,
No.
it just comes out of nowhere, and it just... I don't understand
There's-
it, but it's just what I love about it.
No,
It's because it's so random.
I remember I caught a lot of shit when that movie came out, because it came out in 2002 when Jackass came out, and I said it was a better documentary than Bowling for Columbine. Like I said that, and I still maintain that. I think it's a better documentary than Bowling for Columbine. It's a much more honest documentary than a Michael Moore movie is. So, yeah, not a fan. Not a fan.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know they don't have to go to the mic, right?
Yeah,
Shout it out.
To work
Yeah.
myself through this. Two-part question. One, what movie represents Chicago the best?
What movie represents Chicago the best?
Yeah, Chicago, not suburb. Not
So
Chicago.
you mean like best use of the city, or
No.
like
no,
what is the
that-
best Chicago?
Yeah, like what you're like. This is Chicago. This is.
Well, okay, that's hard for me to. It's hard because I mean, if you're talking about what best kind of represents Chicago, it's a movie I don't like,
Uh-oh.
and it's The Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
Which is a movie I don't like. I don't think The Blues Brothers is a good movie. It's not. The music's great, and the music's great, and the fact that at that time, nobody was buying James Brown records, nobody was buying Aretha Franklin records, nobody knew who John Lee Hooker was in 1980. Nobody did, especially white people had no idea who those people were. So I love the Blues Brothers for what they did musically and shining a light on artists like Aretha Franklin and all that stuff. That's fantastic. The movie's stupid and it's not very funny. But if people say, what's a Chicago movie? Blues Brothers. Now for me, the best use of Chicago, one of my favorite movies that's ever been shot here, directed by the great Andy Davis, who did The Fugitive and a bunch of other movies. Stony Island, which is awesome. Stony Island is a great movie. But my favorite use of the city is in a Chuck Norris movie.
Code of Silence.
Called Code of Silence, exactly. And if
The
you've
right
not
crowd is
seen
here.
Code of that's right. If you've not seen Code of Silence, it's a Chuck Norris movie, but it's a good Chuck Norris movie, like
Yeah.
legitimately good. And it's a great cop movie, and it's a great use of Chicago. The locations and that, because everybody who shoots in Chicago is like, let's show the Buckingham Fountain, let's show the Hancock Building, and blah blah blah.
Ferris Bueller.
Oh, don't get me started on that movie. But yeah, so if you've not seen Code of Silence, fantastic.
All right.
Now you said it was a two-part
Yeah,
question?
two-part question. And all right, so I have family outside the U.S. Okay. And,
You have family outside the U.S.
outside of the U.S.
Yeah.
What movie, really tells the tale of the U.S.?
Of America?
Yeah, I know. And
Wow.
and I'm asking this because you guys are
No, it is, yeah.
you're critics and you have an opinion about a lot of stuff.
So what movie do I think represents America? I don't make no
Jackass.
Make no Jackass, yeah. Jackass is good, yeah. I'd have to think about that, but man, that's a
America
great
right
question.
now, too.
Well, America right now is Children of Men. If you're not kidding.
And that-
Children of Men. Have you guys seen Children of Men?
Yeah.
2006, Alfonso Cuarón with Clive Owen. That's a documentary now. Yeah, back in 2006 when that movie came out. By the way, that movie takes place in 2027. Okay? It takes place in 2027. In 2 years, that might legitimately be an ABC special to show you what's happening in the streets. I'm not kidding. Yeah.
Quite
I'd have to think, it's a great question though. I'd have to think about that. But Jackass, I'm going with Jackass.
Back to the Future 2.
Back to the Future 2. Yeah, where Biff becomes Trump. I remember when Trump got elected in 2016, because that movie takes place, the Back to the Future 2, the futuristic stuff takes place in 2015.
Yeah.
So they were a year off. They were only a year off on the Cubs winning the World Series, because in Back to the Future Part 2 in 2015, the Cubs win the World Series.
Yeah.
And that's played as a joke because the Cubs were never going to win the World Series. And also, Biff basically becomes Trump
right?
in that movie. That happened in 2016. So Robert Zemeckis, genius, by the way,
Of course, yes.
who I love,
We know that.
who, by the way, is mentioned in almost every chapter of the book because I worship the ground that Robert Zemeckis walks on. Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, I remember in 2016, they were like, don't blame us. We didn't, we just wrote this thing a long time ago, don't blame us. So, but yeah, Back to the Future 2, yeah.
Hey Nick, I got another Chicago movie for you.
Okay.
Going back to '68. Oh, Medium Cool.
Medium Cool,
Yes.
great film. Great film.
Masterpiece.
Haskell Wexler, amazing film. Yeah.
Robert Forster.
Yeah, an incredible movie, shot during the '68 convention.
They went everywhere, all
Yeah.
over the city. They,
Yeah.
Uptown.
Yep.
They dealt with some of the families from Appalachia that were living there.
Absolutely.
I think the opening scene was Fort Sheridan. They were rehearsing the National Guard,
That's exactly right.
and they went every Garfield Park.
Yep.
I mean, fantastic.
Yeah, Medium Cool is a great
Yeah.
great one to mention. If we're talking Chicago movies,
Yeah. You see,
legendary.
Drive East, but minus all the buildings
Right.
you see now.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. That's a great one.
Can I ask you about another Chicago movie? Completely different. The original Sean Penn
Bad Boys, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was,
Yeah,
forgot the name of the place, but it's.
it was shot here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick Rosenthal directed that movie, and shot here. I know somebody, an old buddy of mine, his older brother.
Yeah.
This guy that I know from years ago. His older brother's in that movie. He plays one of the inmates.
Jamie Lee Curtis had a role in that movie for like 30 seconds. You couldn't see her.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. All right, Bad Boys, another good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else?
So I used to call your show all the time, and Roy, and Wally, and Milt. And
Thanks for doing that. Thanks for doing that.
I got off of GN about 10 years ago. But
I got off of GN about 10 years ago as well, too. No, I got off of GN 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Yeah.
I'm an insomniac, so I listen to your show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
We had a lot of phone calls, but just wanted to ask. I talked to some really big stars on Roy's show. I got to talk to Rod Steiger one time, and James Coburn.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any big stars on your show?
On my show?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who
I mean-
were the best guest today?
Well, I mean, over the years, I've had a lot of really cool people on the show. I got to say that I've talked to a lot of filmmakers that I really admire. I mean, having John Carpenter on my show a couple of times. John Carpenter, I mean, in the book, in the opening, because the opening chapters of the book are autobiographical. They're about me growing up. And when I saw movies as a kid, I grew up seeing movies downtown in the Loop, in those grindhouses in the 70s. And I used to see back when there was about 12 theaters within walking distance in the Loop. There was the Chicago, the State Lake, the Roosevelt, the McVickers, the Loop, United Artists, the Woods, Oriental. They were all there, and I was in the 70s. That's where I saw all my movies. I saw triple kung fu features. Most of the audience that I saw it with were African American, and it was a completely different experience culturally, and I just treasure all of that. That's how I grew up watching movies. And one of the movies that changed my life, the movie that changed my life was Halloween. It was John Carpenter's Halloween. I had seen a million movies by that point. This was 1978, I was 13. So by the time I was 13, I had seen a million movies in the Loop grindhouses and stuff that was completely inappropriate. My dad bribed a manager at the McVickers Theater to let me in to see a movie, so that I could get a barf bag.
Mark of the Devil.
Mark of the Devil, yes. Nobody under 18 was admitted, and I was probably 9 or 8 or 7. And it was under 7 because I wanted the barf bag, because it came with a barf bag. And it was Mark of the Devil, this notoriously violent movie. And so my dad called out the manager, the person wouldn't sell me a ticket, wouldn't sell my dad a ticket for me. And my dad bribed the manager, and I got in, and I got my barf bag. But by the time I was 13, I had seen a ton of movies, but I really wasn't aware of, I saw the credits and I read them, and I really wasn't aware of what anybody did. But when I saw Halloween, something shifted when I saw it. And while I was watching that movie, I began to realize what a director did. So John Carpenter, to this day, is like my personal hero, my favorite director. Because when I saw Halloween, when it was over, I walked out of the Chicago, I was playing at the Chicago Theater, and I walked out and I went right to the poster, and I went over and I looked to see who directed it, and I made a note of it, and I was like, John Carpenter. And from that point on, I dove into directors. I started to read about the auteur theory. I started to dive into, foreign directors. I got into Kurosawa, and I got into Fellini, and I got into Coppola, and I got all of this stuff. And then I started to pay attention to who directed something. So having Carpenter on my show twice was amazing. It was amazing. But I have to say, I can't off the top of my head. I had a lot of big stars on my show in the past. But I have to say that in the world of filmmaking, one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done, and who became, obviously Tobo is up there. Tobo's become a friend. Stephen Tobolowsky's become a friend, and that was really nice, man. Thank you for doing that. But George Romero is probably my favorite interview that I've ever done. George Romero created Night of the Living Dead. By the way, horror is my favorite genre, if you don't know that. That's also in the book. But not all the movies in the book are horror, obviously, you know that. None of the ones that we showed were horror films tonight. But George Romero was amazing. And I was only supposed to have him on the show. We booked him for 45 minutes. He stayed on for 3 hours the night I had him on. And he had said that it was the best interview that he had ever been a part of. And I got to meet him at the Flashback Horror Convention, of which I am a host and a moderator there. I've been doing that for 25 years. And I got to meet him, and we sort of became friends. Like George Romero, one of my absolute heroes, the man who invented the modern day zombie. Like one of my favorite filmmakers, one of the greatest satirists of all time. And he dug me, and I dug him, and he was on my show a bunch of times. So if I had to pick the number one, the first night I interviewed George Romero back, I believe it was 2003. That was the one that stood out. But I've met a lot of big stars, sitting in on Roy's show, like Jamie Lee Curtis and Catherine Bigelow. Met them at the same time. They were in town promoting Blue Steel, which is a great movie. And there's a picture of me. Jamie Lee Curtis is my lifelong, will always be my forever crush. Because of Halloween, I was 13. Not only did I realize what a director did, but I fell in love with Jamie Lee Curtis, and I still love her to this day. And she was always my favorite when she was doing the horror films in the 80s and all. I love her. But doing an interview with her and Catherine Bigelow, and I have a picture of me between Catherine Bigelow and Jamie Lee Curtis.
What a smile on your face.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. But, yeah.
The movie that changed my life was Back to the Future, oddly enough. And that was, my dad and I walked out of the theater in Dalton, Illinois, and I went over to the poster and did the exact same thing you did. I made a mental note of who directed it.
Yeah.
And
Robert Zemeckis is...
You've interviewed him, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a big one. My God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. How could I forget about that? He's one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I love everything that he does. Look, he made a movie a couple of years ago called Here that 3 people saw with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, and it was, the setup was there was one camera, and it was told through one shot, and a house that was built around it over years and years and years and years and years. It's a great film, and 5 people saw it. Robert Zemeckis is one of those guys who is on the cutting edge of technology, who moves cinema forward, but never at the expense of telling a great story.
I agree.
Ever.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. You had your hand up.
Question?
Yeah, speaking of Jamie Lee Curtis, did you see her in The Bear?
Yeah.
I kept looking at that going, God, I know her.
Oh, you didn't know it was Jamie Lee Curtis?
And I'm not at first. I'm like,
Yeah.
And it doesn't show. Why look at the.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis. I can't dance with that.
Yeah, I saw her. I don't like The Bear. I think that show sucks. But I did watch every episode that she was on. The only time. And I love the episode. There's one episode in particular that I like, because I think that show sucks. But the one episode that I really enjoyed was Jamie Lee Curtis, because she says jagoff 15 times. And jagoff is the best word in the English language. And to see my forever crush being in Chicago saying jagoff a bunch of times, I'm like, this is the best moment of my life. So.
The movie you had up there with next to the gas station, the guy with the bloody mouth. Who was that? And then was that John C. Reilly standing next to him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. William H. Macy. It's William H. Macy. Sorry?
He was Fargo?
Yes. Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
And then if you could finally, can you talk a little bit about Jeff Tuchman?
Jeff Tuchman.
Yeah.
For those of you who
video answer man, was that?
It was my video answer man.
Yeah.
Jeff Tuchman was a guy that, if you don't know, if you listen to my radio show, you know who he was. Jeff was a regular on my show, and he would be on monthly to do the monthly video preview of what was coming out for the month, and we gave away a lot of. He would always come in with DVDs, and we would do trivia. Jeff was my video guy. So now, video stores don't exist. You don't rent things. Everybody streams everything now, so that doesn't exist. Jeff is a great guy. He was a wonderful addition to the show. I had him on monthly, and we would always find out what was coming out on DVD, and if it was available or when it was going to be coming available. Audiences loved him because he was really friendly, and he always brought a box full of stuff to give away, and he always brought a box full of stuff to me. So every time, once a month, he'd show up with a giant box filled with DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff, and I'd be like, Jeff, you're the greatest. Incredibly nice guy, and one of the first guys to embrace the video business. When it was being denied, when nobody knew it was going to take off, when it was only beta, Jeff was there at the very, very, very beginning. And he was an innovator in that world. And when it took off in the 80s and into the 90s, he was on top of it and better than anybody and knew more about it than anybody. So he was one of my favorite regular guests of all time. Love Jeff. Loved him.
Got time for a couple more.
Hi. I have two questions. How do you feel about Jordan Peele's Get Out?
How do I feel about Jordan Peele's Get Out? Okay. Oh, you want me to answer that one? It's the only movie of his I liked. Yeah, I like Get Out. I think Get Out is really good. It doesn't age well, but I like it. Us has some moments. I hated Nope. Absolutely hated Nope. I thought Nope was terrible. But I like Get Out. You know what? For me, I'm always going to love Jordan Peele because he's in Key and Peele, and it's the greatest sketch comedy show of all time. And I love Key and Peele, so I like him. But I like Get Out. I think it's good.
And then, speaking of Grand Budapest Hotel,
Yeah.
Wes Anderson,
Yeah.
did you feel that when I saw that,
Grand Budapest Hotel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you feel that the soundtrack was a bit too much?
That the soundtrack was a bit too much?
At certain parts of the film?
I think that's true of a lot of Wes Anderson's movies now. And that he loads up the music and he loads up the songs, and that's kind of a gimmick of his that he uses. I don't particularly think it doesn't. I don't remember that particularly.
The score maybe is
bothering
very
me.
prevalent
Yeah,
throughout the whole film.
Grand Budapest Hotel I thought was. I liked the movie, but for me the reason that movie works is because of Ralph. Ralph Fiennes is unbelievably funny in that movie, but I don't recall the score or the songs being overwhelming in that. I'd have to watch it again. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Anybody else?
Oh.
Hey, you sent me what's his name? The guy who had on the first, the DVD of his.
Stephen Tobolowsky.
You sent me that when you were on the radio. I used to listen to you all the time.
Okay. So is it Stephen Tobolowsky's birthday party or?
Yeah.
That one?
Oh, that's so good.
That was the first time he ever came in studio.
Yeah.
Back in 2009, and then we went for a beer afterwards across the street at Billy Goat.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So thanks for listening, man.
Sure. And hey, you got great taste in movies. I mean, Magnolia is one of my favorites.
Magnolia is one of your favorites?
Fearless is great.
Thanks, man.
Jeff Bridges should have won it.
You should have. Do you have a copy of my book?
No.
You should get a copy of my book.
That's what we want to save time for.
I'll be right over there. We want to save time for that because I'll be right over there selling and signing copies of my book.
Yeah. Oh, let's just do one more.
One more,
and then we're done.
Are you able to tell within the first 5 or 10 minutes of a movie whether you're going to like it or not?
See, that's an interesting question because that's a thing. Because I come in, listen, man. Everybody who knows me knows that I carry baggage with me into movies. If I don't like an actor or an actress, if I don't like a director, I walk in and go, "Prove me, prove it." So sometimes I'm an asshole when I walk into a movie. So yes, that's true. Sometimes within 5 minutes, I'm like, I'm not gonna like this. I'm not gonna like this. And then there are other times when I completely my mind completely changes. When I walk in with the lowest expectations and I walk out really liking a movie. That happens, and I love that when that happens. I walk in with really low expectations, and then I end up really liking it, or vice versa. Or I walk in thinking I'm gonna love a movie, and it was bad. I just saw a movie called Crime 101, which comes out in the middle of February. I was really looking forward to it. Director is really cool, got a great cast. Not good. But within the first 5 minutes, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then it took about 15 for me to go, uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Because I find that a movie can really grab your attention. But then I have to tell myself, give it a chance, give it a chance.
Yeah.
Sometimes I suffer the whole way.
Yeah, there are movies that have great openings and then suck for the rest, and vice versa. That's true. Yeah, true.
All right, we got to wrap things up here so we can have some time for books. Give it up for Nick Digilio.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you everybody for coming out. We really
If
appreciate
you
it.
guys have questions or anything like that,
Yeah.
I got a few minutes. I'm over here and I'm selling and signing books. It's $25. I've got